This week we have a bonus risk taker story. Let's take a look at what it is. We are going to read a story about being a risk taker. What does it mean to be a risk taker? When we're risk takers, we give things a try. We always try new things so that we know how things are done. So even if we don't know how to do something, we can always give it a try. Maybe that means you're trying a new food or a new activity or a new game. Anything new, you're being a risk taker. October, our word of the month for October is risk taker. So that's why we're talking about being a risk taker. Last month, we talked about being communicators and different ways we communicate, like with our mouth, our ears, and sometimes with our body or different artwork. And so this month, we'll talk about being a risk taker. So our story today is going to talk about being a risk taker. We're going to read about our friend Jane, and she is going to share how she was a risk taker. So while I'm reading, I want you to think, how is Jane a risk taker? Think about that. We're going to read a story called Through Jane's Eyes, Lessons Learned from Dr. Jane Goodall. So this is a story about a doctor, and her name was Jane Goodall, and she did a lot of really great things, and we're going to read all about them in here. And this was written by 4th grade students of Mendon Center Elementary School in Pittsford, New York. So the introduction says, Jane Goodall is an inspiration for children around the world. At a young age, many told her, Jane, forget about this nonsense with Africa. Dream about things you can achieve. Those harsh words inspired Jane to bring her dream of making a difference in Africa to reality. Not only did Jane save a species from the brink of extinction, but she continued to empower children by showing them how to carry out her work and make their world a better place. Jane speaks with her whole heart, and she moved us to write this book in order to spread her message. In the words of Jane, children can change the world. Through Jane's eyes, we learned to never stop asking questions. As a child, Jane was not only curious, but willing to wait for answers. That inspiration can come from unlikely places. It was stories of Tarzan and Dr. Dolittle that motivated Jane to travel the jungles of Africa to help the animals in the wild. Excuse me. And that when you want something bad enough, you work for it. It was expensive to travel to Africa, so Jane worked as a waitress to save enough money for the trip. Through Jane's eyes, we learned that dreams have no boundaries. At 22 years old, Jane went to see Africa for herself. To be grateful for those who believe in you, Jane's mother supported her unconditionally, even when others doubted her. And that patience has its rewards. Jane sat for hours observing and learning about the chimpanzees and how they live. Through Jane's eyes, we learned that trust is not built overnight. For several months, the chimpanzees kept their distance from Jane until one chimpanzee finally accepted a banana from her. That things aren't always what they seem. Jane was surprised to see that chimpanzees could make and use tools in many ways. And that letting go is one of life's hardest tasks. Jane said goodbye to her beloved chimpanzees to share her discoveries and influence with the world. Through Jane's eyes, we learned to speak for those without a voice. Jane travels 300 days a year to teach the world about ways to conserve and protect animals in their environment. That everyone has the potential to break barriers. Jane is a trailblazer who sets an example for women with dreams of becoming researchers and champions for the environment. and that we need to be empowered to act. Jane started Roots and Shoots, a program whose mission is to inspire children to make the world a better place for people, animals, and the environment. Through Jane's eyes, we learned that it only takes one person to spread hope to the world. You cannot get through a single day without having an impact on the world around you. What you do makes a difference, and you have to decide what kind of difference you want to make. That's what Dr. Jane Goodall said. And that's the end of the story. So what do you think? How was Jane a risk taker? All right, great answers. We're going to go and read our morning message now.